Welcome back to another video. This video is a continuation of my VMware Lab system. So I currently run a Windows 10 machine, and I'm running on AMD Ryzen 7 2700, 32 gigs of RAM, and so that's my system to play with. So with that, there becomes challenges when you want to run virtualization, and the big thing is virtualization of the OS X. So I'm currently installing the Catalina. I will fire up my old Mavericks just to show you, and then we'll get into how we got there. So as you see, it's turning on, it's booting up. Now remember, these are VMs, so my whole intention here is not to have the virtualization platform to run production level of stuff. This is just for me to test things. As you can see there, something's blowing up because I'm testing things. So that's the whole OS. So the whole idea of my virtualization lab is for me to test something. So let's say I'm not sure how something looks or how it works, I can go into the Mac environment to test it out. I'm not a Mac user 100%. I mean, I have my MacBook Air over there as my toy to run around, just do web surfing and things like that. But this desktop is my main machine I use for my own personal stuff. So this here OS X 10.9, which is Mavericks, it's a little old, but it allows me, if someone I know has a problem with Mavericks or needs to install it, I can get some updates and things like that through here. What it also allows me to do is one of my upcoming videos will be how to make a multi-boot for Apple. And this is what I need to do it. So this is why I was setting up this lab. So going through this lab, just to show you, I've installed Catalina. It's still going now. And now, because I use a lot of memory on some of these VMs, I'll shut them down. And we'll go to Mojave. I just finished installing this one. So it is tricky to get a VM running. Usually what I do is I download a base image and it does the install and everything's just quicker. This is a little beyond the legal license version. You can't really buy OS X to put on any machine. You can go to the Apple Store and it lets you download it on your machine because their machine supports their software. It's more, the Mac environment is more controlled, so the hardware they have in there is in the same machine, everything they sell, with the exception of Pro having a secondary video card, or it might have a different CPU generation or something like that. But on most point, the hardware is all the same. This is why it functions smoother than a Windows environment where you could buy 100 different motherboards, 100 different video cards, different types of RAM, different types of hard drives. You could use all that on a Windows machine. So this is why there's the harder way to get things going. So just show you here. It is a fully running on my machine, running Ryzen. It is running macOS in a VM. Now, like I said, it isn't a production environment for me. It's just for me to kind of learn the OS, see what the differences are. If someone needs help, I can figure out how to go where I'm telling them how to fix something. That's the only reason I use this. I use it for nothing other than that. As you can see here, once it starts up, you will see right there, right? Running beta. To me, I don't care how current or whichever the case may be. I don't care about that. The fact that it's macOS, right? It's running 7.1. I've used little changes so it looks like it's a virtual machine. See, so it doesn't tell you what hardware it is or CPU you're using, because of course it doesn't run on AMD's. It would be cool if it did, but there was a little struggle to that. So what I will do is I will show you how we got there. So the first thing you need to do is some homework. Anybody out there who's tried to turn their computer into a Hackintosh, yes, Ryzens can do it. There's lots of data out there to find out. You got to do a lot of reading. There isn't really just a website you go to and go step 1 to 10 and you're up and running, because your hardware is different. So to give you a little more insight to that, here. And I think my Catalina is done. So we'll let that boot. So now we'll flip over to the web browser just to show you where I find some of this stuff. So Google search finds you everything you need. One of these sites is one of the ones I go to. So we can look at here. And this is where I find things. Basically, I'll show you exactly what I did to find where I went. So you download the image. So you need to go here. The first thing you need is your VM Workstation. So you need VMware's Workstation software. You could buy it from vmware.com. You go there, or however you want to run it. You can run a trial version of it. You can also get the VM Player. And the VM Player is actually free. So you could use the VM Player to use this instead of actually right here, the player. So you can use player instead of the full workstation if you prefer. I prefer the workstation. This is what I have. So you could use VMware Workstation. You also use the VirtualBox as well. It's a little different setup. Maybe I'll set a video series with them as well. But this is my purpose here for this video, is to tell you how to use the Mac environment to get it up and running in here. So what you do is you have to get your VMware Workstation, and you have to get this patch tool. Then you get your Mojave. Now you could find this here, the beta one, that's what I'm using. Or you can go out and find through a Google search to find what you need. So this here tells you to get the VMDK file, right? So you're going to download it. Tells you how to get it. Okay. So the first thing you need to do, rather than reading all this, if you go through this, this will tell you how to do it step by step. So once you get VMware Workstation installed, when you create a new VM, this does not exist. Apple Mac OS X does not exist. You need to run a little patch script, which is included in the downloads. That's that patch script I told you about. It's called Unlocker 302. Let's extract this. So Unlocker 302 has, let's extract it to here. So Unlocker 302, once you have VMware installed, you want to right click, run as administrator on the install tool. That'll bring up a DOS window. Let's run it here. Right, so it just goes through, it's going to stop my VM service, and it's going to patch it, and it does what it needs to do. That tool you go click on the link, it'll get you that tool. So you download this tool and you go forward. So that's what you need there. You need the workstation, you need that tool. Once the tool is installed, then when you open up the set, so for instance, let's say we're going to build another Mojave, right? So we go new virtual machine, and it's the same way for all of the versions here. So next, I will install the operating system later. I want to choose this. Now Mojave is 14. So we'll say 14. Next. So this way I know it's the video one, not my other one. And we go browse, and then you put it where you want. I have an SSD drive, so I will create a folder. Okay, folder video Mojave. You can leave it stock. I just use 2.2. Let's give it 4 gigabytes of RAM. Bridge, that's what I'm doing. I'm bridging to my network adapter so that way I can use it to the internet and everything. Default. Now, SATA is default because Macs run on SATA drives. Now you create a new disk. Now there's two ways of doing it. You can create a new disk or you can open a new disk. What I usually do is I stop here. I go to my folder where I have the downloads. So I have my Mac VM source. This one here is Mojave, right here. So Mojave, let's go to the website here. Sorry, this one, Wikigain. That's where we are now. So we're getting Mojave. So when I download that image, this one here, the VMware image, it will be downloaded. Once it's downloaded, you're going to have in a VM, in a RAR file right here, 1014. I right-clicked, 7-zip, extract. It's going to extract it into my folder, and there's the disk. It's 10 gigs. I'm going to copy this to that SSD drive, the video Mojave. I'm going to put that here because that's the disk, right? So if you have an SSD, it's going to go pretty quick. If you have a hard drive, it's going to go a little slower, but still you get it. So now while this is running, let's go back. So here's our VM we're trying to create, and we're going to say use the existing disk. Go next, browse, and if we browse in the video mode, there it is there. Now it's not quite done yet, so let's wait for it to finish. Once it's done, we can choose it. Now, like I said, every one you're going to do, you're going to do pretty much the same way. You're going to choose the disk you want. Once you choose it, then there's some slight editing. And Catalina, there's yet another difference. So let's go, once this is done, we can go back to Catalina and we can show you what the difference is. I found these tricks and a lot of people are having troubles. The key to it is make sure you're not running anything newer than 15.1 of the VMware Workstation. Do not run 15.5. It has some blocks in it now that are blocking you from using this. So now we go back here, choose a disk, keep the existing format. That is the key to this one. Keep existing. All the ones you do, always keep existing format because somebody made this disk for you. So now we have this. We want to edit the VM. 4 gigs, 4 processors, 100 gigabytes. You want to change your USB. You could put it to 2, that's fine. And then bridge, it's where we want it. So everything is fine here. Everything is fine. We're good. So click OK. So now that's done. Now what we need to do is right click on it and say open VM directory. When we get to the VM directory, you need to see the .vmx. So if you need to do that, you go here, file name extensions, right? They're gone. Go view, file name extensions, they're back. You need to edit this file. Now let's edit this file. So first thing you need to do is change that to 10. Virtual hardware version. Change it to 10. Scroll all the way down to the end here. Hit enter. In your download, or if you want to just copy the text I have here, you're going to see text like this. You're going to need to put this in if you're using a Ryzen. So copy and paste. So all your VMs that you're using, each one of those versions will need to have this put in there. Click save. I'm using Network Plus, so you want to close that. This way you know it's done. Now that file's been edited. Now to get that information, let's go back to the other folder here. So in my downloads, you will find a macOS package. That package has the VMX file text right there. So all you have to do, you can Google it, macOS Catalina package. It will come with the zip file like this, right here, macOS Catalina package. All you have to do is look for that macOS Catalina package, and that is on, it's called intoguide.com. You go there, and there it is right there. It goes through to download it. Get it from MediaFire. It takes a little time to download. This is the key point. That's the password to open the RAR file. So when I go to this RAR file now, if I want to open it, if I say extract, it says, yeah, there's files there, right? It's going to do it because I already typed my password. But if you get prompted for a password, that's the password for the file. It really does work. And this tells you how to do it, this page here. So I will put this link in the description below so you know. I will put this link, I'll put this link as well. And I will put this link here, which I think is coming from this page right here, the tool finder. So this link will give you everything you need here. So let's go back away from the web and let's go back into what we're doing. Minimize this, minimize that. We now have our VM. We've edited the file. We've added the CPU because we have to fake CPU. We got to tell this VM that we're running Intel. That's really what we're doing, is we're lying to it that we're not running AMD, we're running Intel. Because AMD is capable of running the same things Intel can. It's just some things are calling the code directly. So this is just masking it. So what we'll do now is we'll power on the VM. And with any luck, first thing you see, cannot connect to virtual SATA 1 because not correspondent. You just say no. That is a normal error I've always seen. So now we have our VM booting up. It's now actually loading for the very first time. Now this first time will take a little time because it's actually loading up to the installing part, to the installer. So this will load. Takes its time. So while we're at it, let's see if Catalina's done. Catalina keeps messing up. I've never done Catalina fully yet, so I did a little different than the documentation online said, but I found some tricky things with Catalina. So I'll mention those things, but I will hopefully have a full VM up and running before the video is over. And anytime you're inside the window like this, you can't get your mouse, you hit Control-Alt to release your mouse, and then you go here. So here you go, Mojave is starting up. I already have a Mojave, but this is the one I'm showing you in the video on how to get there. So now it's loading. I can click in it, and I've got the mouse. Again, that's the USB part. You got to make sure it says USB 2 at least. And then your mouse will be available. And now what will happen is we should hear some audio. And the audio is the Mac, the Mac voice, Siri. I believe it's Siri. On the Mac, so it will start talking about how to do it, just like when you set up Windows 10, Cortana start talking. So we'll let that run. We might hear it in the background if I click around. So see how this boot normally. Let's go MacOS, right? So we want to say boot normally because I think it's done. So now let's see. Again, I'm still building this one, so I'm going to shut this one down. Edit. The trick to this one when you build it is you actually have to tell the thing you're running Windows. So after it's installed, I think we have to go back. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to click OK. And let's see if this fires up now. Like I said, I'm playing with a lot of knowledge. I'm playing with how to get this VM to go. So let's just see what happens when I put it back to Linux, to Mac. So let's go back to this installer. Has it popped up yet? No, not yet. But you can see there's some things happen. The drive will flash because it's running. And here you go. So flipping back to Catalina, I'll show you how to start it up. I'll run another startup again, but then when you're done, you have to flip it back to Mac. So hopefully this fires up to the fully completed installed Catalina. Well, we're still waiting for the installer to pop up. And I'll flip back and forth between windows. So while we're waiting for that, let's bring the web browser back up. So remember what I said. There's text viewer. You can go here to virtual machine, VMware, and there's tons of information on what to do, how to do. The secret to all those VMs is adding this to that VMX file. So that's why I have it open, because when I do all these VMs today, I just rebuilt my VMware environment on my Ryzen. Had some trouble getting it going, but it was still up and running. This is the other one, the Wikigain. That's a good site to go to, as I found this. This has the beta of Catalina. I'm pretty, Mojave, I have the beta, but this has Catalina on it as well. There is a beta Mojave as well. That's for that one. But if you go down further, it has more information. So the first part of the video talks about getting Catalina right here. So you click on that, it takes you up to here. It tells you about downloading it. It tells you need this, you need the pack, you need to, now there's beta, right? There's other ways to find, I'll show you. So we have that. Let's go Google. So you say MacOS Catalina on AMD. You could do VirtualBox or you could do VMware. Now, usually what I do, you could follow videos. There's other people's videos, but they're not complete. You try them and they just don't work because a lot of them skip the fact that you need to put it into, you need to put the VM into Windows. So when you first turn it on the very first time, you need to put it in Microsoft Windows 64-bit. It will boot up the ISO that comes with it and install the OS. So that's what you want to do. So let that run. This is the first time they're booting up. So usually the first time they boot up, they're going to, your time zone. There you go. So there you go. So Catalina is now here. I'm going to put Catalina and say Canada. And I'm good with everything else. I don't want to transfer anything. So this is just like when you first turn on a Mac that you bought from the store. I'm going to skip my ID. Terms and conditions. Of course, the Mac licenses, you have to have it on Mac hardware. Now, this is my, like I said, these videos are just educational on how I have a lab running. My purpose for having my lab is just for me to see what the OS looks like, so I can test to see if there's anything that's different on my current MacBook Air. I have a MacBook Air. I don't want to test anything on that because I don't want to blow that up, so I do my test lab on here. Screen time's up later. I'm gonna go over here and see if this finally fired up. Yeah, that's the one thing with the Mac. When you move the mouse fast, it bros. Okay, so I'm gonna choose dark. And again, this video is just to show you that it is working. I can get it going from the start. I'm trying to show you this one. Once it catches up, it does take a little time. That's the one difference. Now, if you want to argue, hey, you should get a real Mac, and that's not what the intent here is, not to not have a real Mac. I do have one. My intent here is just kind of to say, hey, it works. I can actually use it to do stuff. I don't think I could do full-on video editing in a VM. It's just not the way it's going to work. But the fact that I can play with the OS and learn, so now I can learn something. So if you're trying to learn the OS to get to a Mac, or let's say you support Macs, and you're just trying to figure out how to click on things and how to set things up, this is perfect for this. So it's a perfect little environment to work on. As you can see, I'm running Catalina. This is beta. It really doesn't matter. I could probably update it, and it may update to the new version. I'm not sure. I haven't tried it. So we'll let that run and see what it does. So this one here, it's still waiting, and this one here. Now, keep in mind, I have 32 gigabytes of RAM. There's upgrade now. What's the more? Is this more telling me that it's going to, yeah, I got to fix the internet. So is this more telling me I need to upgrade to the latest version? That's okay, that's fine. But this is the actual developer. So this is obviously a development copy. So like I said, Google's your friend. Right? All you have to do is right here. Mac OS Catalina VMware image. Right here. And this is where you get your stuff. There's a ton of it out in the internet out here. So I'm not creating this, not my stuff. It's just stuff I found from surfing the internet. And if you just follow them through, once you get your files, the files I have, right? macOS Catalina package. Once I have that, for me, I don't care if it's beta or not. I'm just testing again. I'm not trying to circumvent buying a Mac and getting the Mac quality. In no way suggesting that with this. This is just to say that I've got it up and running. Now I've got my Catalina running. So I have Mojave, Catalina, High Sierra, Mavericks, and now Mojave is the test one that I'm just running. This did take a long time for it to come up. Once you do this, it's up and running. You go through the same tabs we just saw for the setup, and then you're up and running. As you can see here, this is shutting down. Now I have 32 gigabytes of RAM, so this allows me to do this. As you can see, my test VMs here. These are all tests. These are 120 days, or so, I believe, licenses. 60-day licenses. These are just temporary versions of Windows. Are not fully. They're just the development modes. They're just free versions that I just delete after 120 days of doing my testing. My videos, I show a lot of cluster, how to set up things. That's it. So there's no real reason for me to have a full version of license because I don't use them. I use Windows 10 as my core OS. So that was the intent of the video, is to show you that they do actually work. So like I said, when you set up Catalina, so let's do that. Let's set up a Catalina. I'll show you the starting of it. So you set up custom. Right, 14. And I'm going to say 15. Right, so we know this is for the video. I will put it under SSD, and we'll call this video chat. Okay, next. Let's give this 4 gigabytes of RAM. You make it, if you have more RAM for it, it runs better. So, okay, so we do default, SATA default. Now what we can do is use the existing disk, or you say create new. So the documents on the other website say create new disk, make a 100 gigabyte disk, make sure it's single. Performance on it runs so much better if you run a single disk, right? So there's the default disk it's going to create. Click finish. Let's go to that drive. Vmware Lab, Catalina video. So there's what it created. There's the 12 gig. Remember, these are dynamic disks. It's not going to create 100 gigabytes right away. It's just going to build it. So from here, according to the video, what we do is now we need to get, there's 2 things we need to do, right? One, we need to get that ISO file. So the file we downloaded, that Catalina package, we need these things. So copy that and put in here. Just so we have them in there. Okay, that's that file you got. We don't need to run that hack anymore, that first hack we did, because it's already in. So when I created a VM, it allowed me to choose Mac, so you don't need to run that hack every time. That little file that we saw inside of that package, that unlocker, you don't need to run that every time. You just run it once. Once you do it once, just don't take any updates. So your Vmware Workstation cannot be newer than 15.1. If it is, it will die. It will kick itself, because it will fail, because it has some more protections in it, because we're not supposed to be able to do this. This is a side effect, I guess, because Apple doesn't want us doing this, but we keep finding ways to test. Again, this is test. I'm not doing this to tell you to not buy a Mac. Right? There's Mojave running. That's exactly what this will look like once the setup finishes. It does take a little time. So I'll shut this down. Go back to the Catalina. So now remember what I said, when you create your VM, right? We have all that. Now we want to point to the ISO. So we can tell it to install Catalina ISO. It's now there. Now what we need to do is we need to right click, open VM directory, and we need to edit that VMX file. So we need to make sure, again, version 10. Scroll down to the bottom, and if you don't have it still, you want to copy this, paste. So we're putting the CPU SMC version, we're changing the CPU, we're masking it to tell it, oh yeah, it's Intel. So now we save it, close it. I always close it because every time you leave them in here, you could have 6 or 7 different windows in Notepad+. So now we know that's edited. Now let's watch what happens when we turn on this VM. So the first thing we have to do, the videos don't tell you this. You need to edit the VM and you need to change it to Windows and just click OK. And then you power on. Now it's going to power on. You're going to see files create there. It's going to boot up and then it's going to kick into the CD. So let's close this, get rid of that. Again, it takes a couple seconds for it to do it. I'm not sure why these things run as they do, but it is successful in running. It's a lot different than what it used to be before, with just getting an image from somebody else and it already runs. So this is something where you're building it. I've never successfully ran a build completely, but today I was able to do that. So that's the way the video shows on the internet. I'm going to kill this because this is what I'll show you I did. So instead of using the ISO file, I also found from the internet, I found a Catalina disk image from Into Guide. Okay, I will show you that here. So Catalina disk image right here. So we're going to extract it, and that's where it says intoguide.com. That's this site right here, the Into Guide. You're going to download the image, and there's that password I just showed you. So I'm going to extract it. So instead of using the ISO file now, because I've not been successful doing that, I'm now showing you how to take the same VM. So what we're going to do is edit this VM now while this is extracting. So did it extract? Okay, there's the file. So what we want to do now is take this file, copy it, and wherever your VM you have, so in my case, it's going to be here, right? Video Catalina. I'm going to put it here. And remember the file name. Right? It's a lot different than that. So we'll leave that there. Let's delete these LCK, the lock files, and this log file. Let's delete that to clean up this folder a little bit. Okay. Let's go back to the VM that we had open. We're going to take away the ISO, and we're also going to delete the hard drive. We're going to add another hard drive, choose hard disk, and then you want to do SATA, and now you want to say use an existing disk. This is where we're going to go and grab that file we just put in that folder. So make sure we're in the same folder, Vmware Lab, Video Catalina, and that's the one there that we just put in there. So we're going to do that and click finish. And it's going to say keep existing, yes. So we keep existing. We have 4 gigs of RAM, let's dump this up to 2, so it's 4 CPUs, right? For now, let's put it 8 gigs of RAM. Doesn't matter what you do. If you have, I have 32 gigabytes of RAM, so we could do that, and it'll make it run a little faster. So make sure you change this USB to 2, right? And make sure it's left on Windows. Click OK. Now, just to show you why, I'm going to edit this again, go back and put this back to MacOS X, right? I'm going to make it 14. Okay. So this is macOS X, like it should be. We're going to turn it on now. And it's going to say the SATA drive. Okay, fine. It's going to boot up. It takes a few seconds. It's going to finally kick into the disk, and it'll just hang. Right, so boot normally. It just sits and hangs, right? It's supposed to boot up to the actual disk. But now for some reason it's not booting off the SATA drive, so let's make it boot from the SATA drive. And I've been getting a lot of weird things with Catalina. So it seems almost like it's trying not to run. So let's pop out of here. Let's power this off. Let's edit it again and make sure it's on Windows. And let's power it on. So now you're telling it it's a Windows VM. It's going to boot up. Hopefully it boots up to the first disk. Go to Mojave here. See, it's still sitting there. This, for some reason, hangs. I've had some weird issues, but again, these aren't supposed to run here, but I have successfully had them run. And as my videos always do, they always show if there's any problems, we see the problem so we know how to fix them. So what I would do with Mojave, because it's stopping, I would turn it off. And then power it on again. And let's go back here. And now this is also stopping. So as I showed you, Catalina is working. So we have 4 gigabytes RAM, 4 processors, 101 gigabyte drive. So let's go back here and power this off. And let's edit this VM. Let's put this back to the 4 gigabytes the other one is. 4 CPU, 101, auto detect, right? We don't have any CDs. And we're USB 2. And if you want to say show all USB, you can. So click on that. That's the only settings you need to do. And if you want to confirm, you open VM directory, you edit this file again, just to confirm that your CPU information is in here still, and the version of VM is still 10. So that's good. We close that. So it's all good according to what we have at the other one. This one here is still sitting here. And we'll go here. So the main thing here is to show you that I can give you the resources, how you go get the information. And I showed you they are actually running. The setup of the two of them just seemed to be a little trouble. I've had a mixed result with my VMs. Seems they take a little time. I've had to restart these ones, the original two, twice. They are beta. I'm not too happy about that, so I'm gonna have to get another image. So what I'll do is I will try and find a better image to use, and I'll make a full video on those two. But this was just to show you that you can run some VMs on a Ryzen. Other videos have shown the how-tos, but in the end result, you have people complaining they have issues. And most of the issues, if you have where it comes up and says CPU and is disabled, that is a 15.5 issue with the VMware. So this software here, right, it's 15.1. So we don't want, one thing we don't want to do is click on software updates, because we don't want to update it past 15.1, or else you won't be able to use these. I'm assuming somebody's going to come out with some way of patching it. So for some reason, this is booting up as if it's no hard drive attached. And that's one thing I've had issues with this. So what we need to do is, I would say, power off, edit, power off. Because it's lost its hard drive. So let's go here. Hard disk. Now let's remove the hard drive. Let's click OK. So it has no hard drive. Edit it again. Let's add a drive in. This usually fixes it. Now we can leave the recommended. Let's leave that for a second. Let's do use existing. And let's find that drive, which is that one. Finish. Keep existing. And click OK. Now let's see if that's different. Some systems prefer SATA. Some systems will work with SCSI. So we went with the defaults. Let's see what this does. The default should sit here for a second and then flip over to the Apple. Now, because we told this thing it's a Windows VM, this may be the issue. So let's go here, edit the virtual machine. Let's change it back from Windows to Apple and make this thing 14. This is something I hate. I think it's something to do with the version of I'm running. So what we can do is click on upgrade this hardware, and we want to go take it to 14 and say next, alter, next. So we just upgraded the hardware. So let's see if this fires on. We'll more than likely see this issue. So let's look at that for a minute. So now we've upgraded the hardware. Let's go to edit again. Edit this file. And see how it's gone 14 now? Let's change that back to 10. And make sure our other stuff is there. That's good. It adds a whole whack of things because of your configuration. Let's close it. And now let's see. Power on. There you go. So VMware should flip to that Apple screen. For some reason, it's just not booting. So let's go to EFI boot. And it doesn't want to do it. Right? Let's go to the virtual SCSI drive. It doesn't want to boot there either. So this VM is kind of stuck thinking it doesn't know what to boot from. So let's power it off. And let's see what we are at. So what's it trying to boot from? It's trying to boot from Mac 14. Let's go back to Windows. And click on Windows. So now it thinks it's a Windows VM. And this is, like I said, this is one of the hints I was given before on how to get it to boot into a Mac. If we look at this one, it's back to Mac because it was originally in a Windows. So this VM, for some reason, I've messed it up. So you just go like this. Power off. See if this one finally responded. It still hasn't. So it's pretty good. All right, so let's delete it. Let's add another one. So new virtual machine. It's gonna be, let's say, a 14. We want to leave this Mac 14. We're gonna call this test cat. Put it into our SSD. And we'll go video cat. Now let's go to video cat and make sure, so there's video cat, that file's still there. We're going to get rid of that file because that file is bigger than what it was. We'll leave those there. So minimize that. This is where we want it. Two processors. Give this thing 4 GB of RAM. Bridge the network. Again, it doesn't matter what you do with that. Let's leave it alone. Leave that alone. Use, okay, so what we want to do now is we want to use an existing disk. So what I want to do is go here to my source files, and I have Catalina package, right? So that's the ISO. We want to get this disk image. So let's copy this again. Okay, and I'll go back while it's copying. So the source, Catalina virtual disk image by Into Guide. From here, okay, we want to use an existing disk. Let's go to the folder and choose that file. We see it's already copied. Choose it. Keep existing format. Done. Now what we want to do is we want to edit and see how it's Mac. We want to go Windows. Click OK. Let's open VM directory, edit this file. I'll put that to 10. And we want that statement, the CPU statements. So we're going to minimize that, bring this back, click save, close this because we don't need it anymore. And this time we're going to fire it on. It thinks it's a Windows machine. Now it's always going to give you the SATA error. I don't want to see it, so I say no. So there you go. So it's booting up the Mac, and now it's booting up the disk. I think it messed up the first time because I was showing you the way the video shows you here on how to install this way and running from the CD and doing the ISO and all that. It talks about grabbing the ISO image, right? See, there's the WikiGen, right, for the Mojave. That's what this one does, tells you about the Mojave. But the other one that clicks on Catalina, which is this one, this tells you about hooking up the ISO to it. And then you're going to, right, if you follow through this one, it's the same as what I'm doing for the video. Just scrolling down. I know you can't see it when me scrolling so fast, but they tell you exactly what to do here. And I don't know if this video or this instructions will tell you to put it back to Windows. I don't think it does. So you get stuck and you get frustrated because it's not working. See how it says remove the drive, and then you're going to add a hard drive, and then you're going to pick the image. Existing, exactly what I just did. Right? So that's exactly what I just did. And then it tells you here, see, go to Windows. This is one of the most correct documents I found. So even though it's beta, you just have to change that file to a more current version if you can get one. And then they say just to put that. I recommend that. So you might see some errors with just that. So this document does tell you everything I'm doing in my video, as you can see. Let's go back here. And it's starting to load. There you go. So this is installing, and in 12 minutes it'll be installed. And this one here is still hanging out there in the wind. So as you see, it does work. It just takes some time to get it working. You will get frustrated. Just follow this WikiGain. I will put that in the link below so you can go and see that information. And with doing this, you always need to go read. And like I said, it's not about, hey, I can make a Mac without buying one. It's not about that. This is for doing other things, just testing. And it's one of those things saying, I could do that. That's really why I do it, because it just gives me more experience of what to learn. So now I can learn what the differences are between the OSs and how to interact between this OS and that OS without having to have a bunch of machines on in my network. So that's all I use them for. As you see, they're only on for me to show, and that's it. This one here hangs. It's not perfect. It's not meant to be, but it will work. So as you see, I do have a Mojave working. I do have Catalina. This is another Catalina. So while this runs for 9 minutes, it will be done. So thanks for watching. I'll put all the links below as I mentioned, and hope you come back and watch my future videos. Thank you very much.